The sun hung low over the hidden leaf village, casting long shadows across the bustling streets as Naruto Uzumaki, the seventh Hokage, strode through the familiar paths with a determined glint in his blue eyes. The village had known peace for years, but something sinister lurked beneath the surface, a disturbance in time itself. Reports had reached him of strange occurrences, clocks stopping, people vanishing without a trace, and whispers of a rebellion led by an enigmatic force known only as the Clockwork King. Naruto clenched his fists, his mind racing. If time itself was under attack, the consequences could unravel everything he'd fought to protect. Meanwhile, deep within the bowels of a forgotten ruin, gears turned and machinery hummed with unnatural life. The Clockwork King, a towering figure clad in metallic armor adorned with intricate clock faces, stood before a massive, pulsating core, the heart of time. His crimson eyes glowed with cold calculation as he surveyed his mechanical army, their bodies forged from brass and steel, their movements precise and unrelenting. "The era of mortals ends today," he declared, his voice a grating symphony of grinding cogs. "Time bows to no one, but it will bow to me." With a wave of his hand, the air rippled, and a portal yawned open, disgorging his forces into the heart of Konoha. Naruto sensed the disturbance before he saw it, a shift in the air, a wrongness that made his skin prickle. Then, the world erupted in chaos. Clockwork soldiers materialized in the village square, their joints whirring as they advanced, blades gleaming under the sunset. Civilians screamed and scattered, but Naruto was already moving. "Shadow clone jutsu," he roared, and a dozen golden-haired copies burst into existence, charging the mechanical invaders. His fists lashed out, each strike landing with explosive force, sending gears and shrapnel flying. One soldier swung a razor-edged arm at him, but Naruto ducked low, pivoted, and drove a spinning kick into its chest, the impact cracking its metallic frame. Yet for every machine destroyed, two more took its place. Naruto gritted his teeth, his mind racing. These weren't ordinary enemies, they were relentless, unfeeling, and worse, they seemed to predict his movements. Then it hit him, they were tapping into time itself, rewinding their injuries or speeding ahead to counter his attacks. A blade grazed his shoulder, drawing blood, and Naruto hissed. He needed a new strategy. Across the village, Sasuke Uchiha materialized in a swirl of black flames, his Sharingan scanning the battlefield. "Trouble as usual, Naruto," he muttered, though his tone lacked its usual edge. The moment he locked eyes with a Clockwork soldier, his Rinnegan flared, and he vanished, reappearing behind it with his sword already slicing through its spine. The machine crumpled, but Sasuke's eyes narrowed as it began to reassemble, its gears reversing. Time manipulation, he realized. This wasn't just a fight, it was a race against time itself. Naruto spotted Sasuke and grinned. "About time you showed up," he called, leaping over a collapsing building to join him. Sasuke scoffed. "Focus. These things are using temporal energy. We need to disrupt their connection to the source." Naruto nodded, his expression hardening. If they were fighting time, then they'd have to hit harder than time could heal. With a shared glance, the two legends sprang into action. Naruto's body blazed with Kurama's chakra, his form cloaked in a fiery orange aura as he unleashed a barrage of Rasen Shuriken. The spiraling discs of wind and chakra tore through the mechanical ranks, their energy disrupting the temporal fields that kept the soldiers intact. Sasuke, meanwhile, wove hand signs with lightning speed. Amaterasu. Black flames erupted, consuming a cluster of machines, their metal bodies melting under the unquenchable fire. But the Clockwork King was watching. From his throne of gears, he raised a hand, and the very air shuddered. A colossal clock face materialized above the village, its hands spinning wildly. Time itself twisted, Naruto's clones flickered, their movements slowing, while Sasuke's flames sputtered as if caught in reverse. The king's laughter echoed, a sound like grinding steel. "You cannot outrun time, fools." Naruto growled, feeling the weight of seconds pressing down on him. But he'd never backed down from a challenge, and he sure as hell wouldn't start now. "Sasuke, we're ending this," he shouted, his voice cutting through the temporal distortion. Sasuke smirked, his Rinnegan blazing. "Took you long enough to say it." As the two charged forward, their power surging in unison, the battle against time itself reached its crescendo, and the fate of the world hung in the balance. The battlefield was a chaotic symphony of clashing steel and roaring chakra as Naruto Uzumaki faced the relentless march of time itself. The Clockwork Rebellion's mechanical soldiers, their gears grinding with eerie precision, advanced without fatigue, their movements synchronized like the ticking of a colossal clock. Naruto gritted his teeth, his golden cloak flaring as he channeled Kurama's power, his muscles straining against the unyielding tide. A towering automaton lunged, its piston-driven fist hurtling toward him with crushing force. Naruto twisted mid-air, barely evading, and retaliated with a Rasengan that exploded against its chest, sending gears flying. But the machine barely staggered, its wounds sealing as new parts clicked into place. Damn it, they just keep coming back. He growled, eyes darting for an opening. Nearby, Sasuke's Sharingan blazed as he weaved through a swarm of clockwork drones, his sword slicing through their metallic limbs with surgical precision. Yet for every one he felled, two more took its place. They're adapting, he muttered, noticing how their movements mirrored his own. With a sharp exhale, he activated his Rinnegan, the black flames of Amaterasu erupting across the battlefield. The machines screeched as their bodies melted, but even then, their shattered remnants twitched, struggling to reform. Sakura, meanwhile, fought with brute force, her chakra-enhanced fists cratering the ground with every strike. A massive automaton swung a spiked pendulum arm at her, but she ducked low, pivoted, and drove her fist straight through its core. The explosion of shrapnel sent her skidding back, her breath ragged. "We can't keep this up forever," she panted, wiping sweat from her brow. Naruto's mind raced. They needed a new strategy. "Kurama, we gotta hit him where it hurts, their core," he shouted internally. The fox's voice rumbled in response. "Easier said than done. These things are linked to something bigger. Tear that apart, and they'll fall." Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Then we find it." With a burst of speed, he launched himself skyward, forming a massive Rasen Shuriken in his palm. Below, Sasuke saw his intent and teleported beside him, his Susanoo skeletal arm forming around Naruto. "Don't get reckless, idiot," Sasuke grunted, amplifying the attack's range. Together, they hurled the spiraling vortex downward, the sheer force ripping through the mechanical horde, revealing a pulsating, glowing core embedded in the earth, a massive clockwork heart, its gears turning with ominous rhythm. The machines shuddered, their movements faltering for the first time. "That's it," Sakura yelled, sprinting forward. But before she could reach it, a figure materialized from the chaos, a humanoid entity wreathed in shimmering temporal energy, its eyes hollow yet calculating. "You interfere with the inevitable," it intoned, its voice echoing like a ticking clock. Naruto didn't hesitate. He charged, Kurama's chakra surging around him like a second skin. The entity raised a hand, and time itself seemed to slow. Naruto's movements dragged, his muscles fighting against an invisible force. But with a roar, he pushed through, his fist connecting in a devastating blow that sent the being reeling. Sasuke seized the moment, his Chidori screeching as he plunged it into the clockwork heart. The core cracked, fissures spider-webbing across its surface. The entity screamed, its form flickering like a broken mechanism. "Now, Naruto!" Sasuke barked. Naruto summoned every ounce of strength, his Rasengan swelling to colossal size. With a final, earth-shattering impact, he drove it into the heart. The explosion of light and sound swallowed the battlefield, the machines collapsing into lifeless heaps. As the dust settled, Naruto dropped to one knee, exhausted but grinning. "We did it." But Sasuke's eyes remained wary. "Don't celebrate yet," he murmured. In the distance, the echoes of grinding gears began anew, faster, louder. The true battle was only beginning. The air crackled with energy as Naruto stood at the heart of the shattered clockwork city, gears grinding to a halt around him. The sky pulsed with fractured time, streaks of amber and violet tearing through reality like wounds. Across the broken plaza, the Time Warden loomed, his form a shifting mosaic of stolen moments, his eyes burning with the cold fire of eternity. "You cannot outrun fate, Uzumaki," the Warden intoned, his voice a chorus of 1,000 lost seconds. Naruto gritted his teeth, his chakra flaring like a dying star. He was exhausted, his body pushed beyond its limits, but his resolve burned brighter than ever. "I don't need to outrun it," he shot back, wiping blood from his lip. "I'll break it." With a roar, Naruto launched himself forward, his shadow clones materializing in a golden blur. The Warden flickered, dodging with preternatural precision, his scythe carving through time itself. One clone disintegrated mid-air, erased from existence before it could strike. Another froze mid-punch, trapped in a temporal stasis. But Naruto didn't falter. He weaved through the distortions, his fists glowing with Rasengan after Rasengan, each one warping the air with raw power. The Warden countered, his scythe meeting Naruto's attacks in explosions of fractured light, each clash sending shockwaves through the crumbling city. Sasuke's Sharingan flared from the sidelines, his Rinnegan spinning as he analyzed the Warden's movements. "He's not just predicting, he's rewriting," Sasuke muttered. Every move they made was being undone, their efforts erased before they could land. But then he saw it, a flicker in the warden's form, a split-second delay. Naruto, now. Sasuke's Amaterasu ignited, black flames searing across the warden's shoulder, disrupting his flow. The warden snarled, turning, but it was too late. Naruto's fist, wreathed in Kurama's chakra, connected with his chest in a detonation of pure force. The impact sent the warden skidding backward, his form flickering like a dying hologram. But he wasn't done. With a shuddering breath, he raised his scythe, the blade humming with stolen time. You fight against the inevitable, he rasped. But time always wins. The weapon pulsed, and suddenly, Naruto felt it, his body aging, his muscles weakening, his chakra draining. He stumbled, his vision blurring as decades of life were ripped away in an instant. Kurama's growl echoed in his mind. Don't you dare give up, idiot. We're not losing to some clockwork freak. Naruto's fingers dug into the ground as he forced himself up, his body trembling. He could feel his friend's chakra, Sakura's healing energy, Sasuke's unwavering focus, even the distant pulse of the allied forces holding the line against the warden's army. They were all counting on him. You're right, Naruto whispered. Time does win. But not yours. With a surge of determination, he reached deep, deeper than ever before, tapping into the very essence of his soul. His chakra erupted in a blinding spiral, gold and crimson intertwining as Kurama's full power merged with his own. The aging effect shattered like glass, and Naruto stood taller than ever, his eyes burning with resolve. The warden's composure cracked. Impossible. Naruto didn't give him time to finish. In a flash, he was upon him, his fist driving forward with the weight of every hope, every dream, every second he'd fought for. The Rasen Shuriken in his palm wasn't just chakra, it was a storm of willpower, a defiance of fate itself. The warden raised his scythe in desperation, but the blade shattered on contact, time itself buckling under the force of Naruto's strike. The explosion that followed wasn't just physical, it was metaphysical, a shockwave that reverberated through the fabric of reality. Silence. Then, light. When the dust cleared, the warden was gone. The city's gears groaned, then stilled, the unnatural flow of time unraveling. The sky healed, the fractures stitching themselves back together as the stolen seconds returned to their rightful place. Naruto collapsed to his knees, his body spent, but his heart lighter than it had been in years. Sasuke appeared beside him, offering a rare smirk. Took you long enough, Naruto laughed weakly, rubbing his nose. Yeah. Couldn't have done it without you, bastard. The aftermath was a world reborn. The Clockwork Rebellion's influence dissolved, its armies vanishing like echoes. Villages once frozen in time awoke, their people blinking in confusion before embracing their loved ones. The Shinobi Alliance cheered, their victory hard won but absolute. And in the days that followed, something shifted, not just in the world, but in Naruto himself. He had faced time and won, not by outrunning it, but by proving that moments, no matter how fleeting, could change everything. As the sun set over Konoha, Naruto stood atop the Hokage monument, looking out at the village he'd saved, again. He wasn't just a hero anymore. He was a force of nature, a living testament to the power of the present. And as the wind carried the laughter of the next generation upward, he smiled. Time would keep moving. But he'd make sure it moved forward, for everyone.